What I'm going to do is we'll turn some time over first to our, well, first of all, I'm Councilman Page. Our mayor is actually Hill Air Force Base. We'd like to excuse her, but we're expecting her probably around 7 o'clock or so. So she's representing the city there tonight. So we'll turn some time over to our city manager, Shane Scott, and he'll introduce what we're going to do, and then I'll put some ground rules on how this hearing is going to go.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Page. Just to kick this off, obviously this is part of the communication process that we established. We have a scheduled public hearing tonight, probably as just by way of information. Just a public hearing is a good opportunity for the council to hear from the public. It's not necessarily or normally a time for a lot of back and forth or question answering. So if you want to provide for a time when that might be more appropriate, that might be something that some of the individuals here would like to have. So a public hearing is a time for statements to be put on the record and those to be evaluated. Also, that Councilman Page, you might mention that we are addressing this road fee for the first time in 2 weeks on our agenda tonight. I think that was done on purpose so that we could have some time to digest the comments and discuss those in a work session on the 15th. So the first time that any action would be taken possibly on this road utility fee would be on March 1st, which is a month from tonight. So with that, thanks.
All right, appreciate that. What we'd like to do is we'd like to hear from you. We have quite a few people here tonight, so we'd like to make sure that we can get as many as we possibly can. We'll probably close down at either nobody comes up or 5 minutes to 7. We'd like to encourage you to take, we're going to limit it to 3 minutes. It looks like we have a new scoreboard over here, so to make sure that you stick to that. So we'll go ahead and open this up now to our public hearing.
Thank you. I'm here tonight.
Excuse me. Please state your name, too.
My name is Dean Hales. I'm a lifelong resident of Kaysville. I've been here since 1951. I didn't vote for the mayor. I'm still looking for the censure of David Page, but that's off the record. What I am here to talk about is obviously the utility fee. And in speaking to that, I want to just make it clear, any attempt to say that we don't want to pay the utility fee is the basis for the fact that we are okay with the idea that road repairs in Kaysville can consist of nothing more than slurry seal and gravel and mastic tar and what have you. Kaysville City does a fine job of making the main arteries, Main Street and 2nd North to look nice. But for the roads in the living places of Kaysville City, in the 35 years that I've sold real estate, I've sold houses, and every month that there exists in Kaysville is the fact that our roads look like cow trails, and it's been that way for as long as I can remember it. I don't mean any personal disregard to you. It's just, it's so much behind the times. I have a brother-in-law that works as the North Ogden city manager. They utilize the same thing that you're proposing. It's a small community that doesn't have a large commercial taxation base. The limitations on what a city is capable of doing is based upon the ability to write that big check to have things done. None of us here want you to take a long look at it. I sit down and listen to some of the rest of you who don't agree with me. How's it going to get done if we don't step up to the plate and say, hey, it means enough to me that I'll pay the $8 a month to have my road look nice. And the fact is, that's why we're here tonight, is to establish the fact that, are we looking at doing something different than we have now? I hope that we do. And realistically, if they understand the fact that the utility fee is non-transferable to the agenda that Kaysville City city has for anything else that it needs to have done. I've brought my checkbook with me just to be able to let you know that I support it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Morgan. My wife's family has been part of Kaysville forever. And after I retired, instead of getting counseling, I opened a new business. It's called Fizz Drinks. One of the concerns I have is the equality or the fairness of this fee. I understand that it has been put together and used, but I also understand that each and every business, especially the type of business that I'm in, is a little different than the one next door. My average sale is about $3.20. Most of the other fast food restaurants in this town, their average sale is probably 2-3 times that. So I'm going to be taxed, I'll be paying a fee based on square footage. And I'm not opposed to that. But I would hope greatly that the city would take into consideration some other parameters that exist in the individual.
Thank you.
Laureen Kamalu, Kaysville City Planning Commissioner. Thank you to each one of you for your service. So this is a big time for Kaysville to step up our maintenance of our roads, and it is needed. I appreciated the remarks of Mr. Hales. I studied it as a policy problem a year ago. This problem is actually not unique to Kaysville. It is something that many, many cities in Utah and all across the United States struggle with the cost of maintaining their roads. There are a number of reasons for this. One of the biggest reasons is because of the growth of our cities and the way that they can grow, and the roads grow, and the general fund doesn't necessarily grow in the same proportion. And so when I studied it, I recognized that the revenue from our property tax, a lot of people might not realize this, but our property tax does not all go to the city of Kaysville. Only 14% about of our property tax goes to the city of Kaysville to handle roads and everything else that we want and need in Kaysville. Also, just recently, I got an awesome paper from our finance department and found out that something I never knew before. Another revenue stream for the city of Kaysville is the sales tax that comes in, and as was just mentioned, we don't have a great commercial base in Kaysville, but the base that we do have from all the businesses and entities that collect sales tax actually generates more revenue to Kaysville than does the property tax. So, and it's substantial. So the sales tax generated in the year 2017 was $613. And so I am definitely, as you all are, looking at the fairness and continuing to support our businesses more and more because we need them and because we actually could use more of them and we don't want to scare them away from coming to Kaysville. So that was something that I wanted to bring up tonight, those numbers and the fairness. And one of the things, an idea I heard, I don't know if it's really been modeled yet, but one of the prominent business owners in Kaysville talked about the idea of actually finding out a way to the automobiles that are registered for all of us who live in Kaysville. The thing I like about that is that it is a broad and could possibly be a low fee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Saunders, resident of Kaysville. I pulled down the LTAP study that was done and crunched a few numbers. I'm an engineer, so number crunching is what I like to do. I found a couple of interesting things. According to the LTAP study itself, its information says that if we were to increase the amount, so you're currently proposing to go from 1.2, increase it to 3.6 million, you can do a base pavement replacement for 336 for all roads in the city of Kaysville every 20 years. So for just a slight bit more, we can actually not just surface or slurry any road, we can replace them all, according to the LTAP study. Okay? So that says that the numbers seem to be a little bit out of whack with what is being asked for the residents of Kaysville to pay. We're not saying that we don't want our roads fixed. That's not the point. The point is, how much does it really cost? And if I can replace all we're proposing, I would say there's an error in our math somewhere. The other issue, so in addition to that, I also went through and said, well, let's see what happens if we change from 1.2, our current funding level, to 2 million. It says that in 12 years, here's the data to back that up, in 12 years, we can fix all of the roads that are currently marked at an RSL of 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8 by resurfacing them while still maintaining the rest of our roads. Okay? Now, it'll take us 12 years to do it. This predicament, to take a few years to get us out of the predicament is probably not a big deal. That's issue number one. Issue number two, the use of a fee versus a tax. What's the difference between a fee and a tax? 100% of all of the fee goes to this Kaysville City. 100% of the tax, contrary to what was just spoken, goes to the city. Now, it turns out that the property tax itself, only 13% of that is Kaysville City's portion. So, yes, of our entire property tax, only 13% goes to the city. But of the 13%, 100% of it goes to the city. Meaning the amount of money that you recover from a tax versus from a fee. A fee is determined by the city council. They can change it at any time. The tax is spent by order of the city council. They can change it at any time. So if there's a difference, what are the differences between the two? Well, the amount that the city can change can be changed for a fee, but cannot be changed for a tax without a public hearing.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Couple of general comments. The problem you're facing is being faced all up and down the Wasatch Front, maybe all through Utah. Most equitable thing would be if the cities would get together and raise the gas tax and set it up so that all the cities would get some money back. This is just a piecemeal suggestion to take care of Kaysville. Bonneville's got the same problem, and if I read the Clipper right, about every time up and down the valley. And then the question is, how do you make this equitable? I have one. If it's a question, is the use on the road. How do you figure out how to make the tax equitable? That's just my general comments.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Albert Whipple. I recognize the need to improve the roads and see that this is one way to do it. As I look through the different areas listed on the information in the back and that's been in the paper, I'm concerned that a significant segment of developers in the city, residential developers or commercial developers, specifically residential in our area, there's about a 60 house development going on, and the amount of vehicle traffic generated by the development is disproportionate to what will be occurring after the development is complete. Heavy dump trucks, concrete trucks, excavation equipment that really tears into the roads just dozens and dozens of them a day. So I think they needed to be added into consideration. I recognize that developers' impact fees may not have recognized the need to improve roads as we're addressing now, and maybe those impact fees would be the appropriate way to recognize the wear and tear that the developers make on the roads during their construction period, and that would be an appropriate place to do it as opposed to a long-term fee that would be difficult to apply to developers. We do need to improve our roads. I appreciate your efforts in coming up with a plan. My suggestion just is to broaden it just a little bit and get the developers to. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brig Lewis, and a bad penny keeps coming around. As far as the road fee, utility road fee, I say no. Property tax increase, I say yes. I'm working on my taxes now. I can deduct the property taxes. I can't deduct the fees, okay? And we're punishing our businesses by applying that exorbitant levy on their square footage and whatever they do. The other thing I want to just raise, yesterday's Augustin Standard Examiner legislation is working its way through the legislature now that's going to alter the roads and the transportations in Utah from the cities to the county and to the state. It's all going to get scrambled. And I think it would be wise not to pass something now till you see what this does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zane Larson. Now, I have a comment about the earlier, by Ms. Kamlu, taxing, or if you want to address fees based upon how many, if one person has 10 cars, one person has 1 car, they can only drive, the person with 10 cars can only drive the same amount on the road as someone with 1 car. So the state and county is already getting their money from the registration fees, but you should instead look at the number of licensed drivers in the household. That would be appropriate and exactly fair. I want to, tax versus fee, as has been mentioned, it should be put in the property taxes, that's my opinion, because it requires the more procedure for the city to increase the fees or increase the amount of money collected instead of just saying out of writ. We can want to encourage the city council to stop saying that this money is earmarked and this will, if they do a fee, it's going to be for the roads, because if the city council can make a fee and say it's going to be for the roads, they can then change that ordinance and say now it's for a general fund. I mean, there's absolutely nothing stopping the city council, so please stop lying to the citizens of Kaysville with your own misunderstanding of how it works. Because if you can create it, you can change it, you can increase it. I want it to be a property tax. I also want to address that there's been all this talk about repairing the roads, which I've not heard anyone saying that we shouldn't have good roads, but also needed 25 miles an hour. I'm pretty sure a bumpy road can be handled at 25 miles an hour. Some cities will make a nice road and have to put in speed bumps because people are speeding. We got that already. I'm being facetious. But finally, I want to encourage the city council to look at the if you have a road that you paid for, contracted out, and a year later, after it's out of the warranty, this road doesn't have enough oil in it. Why isn't this? There's been zero discussion talking about readdressing our contracts with whoever's doing the roads. Maybe that period of time needs to be increased, the warranty, or whatever they call it in the contracting business, so it got a workmanship. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Wendell Perry. I had an opportunity had to put a new sewer line in for a new property, and had to go down here on 200 North and get a dig permit, or a cut permit, I'm sorry. And part of that permit I had to buy was a cut permit, and it was $1,500. We'll get that back, and so I get home and get through, we put asphalt in it, and it says in there that you have to get this, in order to get that $1,500 back, you have to seal it, and you have to put this A1 emulsion on it. Well, the problem is, to A1 emulsion, you have to have a machine come out here that costs $1,500 or more just to get it out to the area, and to start it up, it costs over $1,500 for that. And so I'm kind of feeling like, well, that money seems like it ought to be kind of earmarked, that $1,500, because I can't do that. So I'm not going to get my money back. Earmarked to go make improvements on the road. But I walk down my road and Flint Street around, and I see place after place where there's been a cut in the road, and none of them have this emulsion on them or sealed. So I know every one of those has paid $1,500, that $1,500, and you can get it back. And I'm just wondering, where does that money go? And it seems like that would be I don't know how many big dig permits we have now going on, but there's got to be a lot. So there's quite a bit of money going into somewhere, and I'm just curious where that's going. And just a suggestion that if we were to take that money and so often on a road or something and seal the roads we have, I think they would last a whole lot longer, because it makes sense to seal them and put that emulsion on there, but you can't afford to do it. And you guys don't do it. So, I think we could maintain the roads we have as they get cut up. We need to make sure that we're doing that. So anyway, I'd love to hear where that money goes. If someone could ever answer that, I don't know. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I like the gentleman that talked about, that had the Standard Examiner article. I think the one thing that I would ask, and that is that we go slow. We all recognize the need for roads. We all recognize the need for various things, but let's not go and set a fee, and then somebody else sets another fee, and somebody else sets another fee. And the way that it was explained to me during the open house was that basically I get to pay my fee, which is fine, but I'm also going to pay every fee of every business that I do, because they're not going to keep that fee. They're going to pass it on in the form of either a sales or what have you, because they're not going to eat that fee. I'm going to eat that fee. So if you want me to stay in Kaysville and keep my business in Kaysville, we're going to have to keep our businesses competitive. Right now, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, but on businesses in towns on both sides of us, you can always get cheaper gas. You can always get cheaper everything. It seems like for some reason or other we in Kaysville think we can pay more, and yet we want to keep. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And if we continue to add cost to that, where are we going to go? Then sales tax will suffer. Then the other things will suffer. So I think we need to be very careful in what we do. And like the gentleman said, it had the Standard Examiner article. Right now, the state road, UDOT, is looking at a user fee. Okay, by the time we get looking at all of these fees and adding all of these fees up, my user fee is not $7 or $8 or whatever. It becomes extremely expensive as I handle all of the roads across the state of Utah.
My name is Sam Jepson. Some of the things I have to say are maybe a repeat of what was said, but I think if there is a special fund set up for such a purpose, it needs to be a dedicated fund, can't be used for anything else. There needs to be an annual audit of that fund, and that audit needs to be published on the city's website so the public has access to it. There's a lot of, I've noticed recently, a lot more 18-wheel trucks going up and down 2nd North. For what purpose, I don't know, but construction in another year. And somehow that needs to be factored in to this fee arrangement, because they will do more damage than numerous cars going up and down that road. And I think it's because it's perhaps the shortest through shot from 89 to I-15 that more of these 18-wheelers turn and head down 2nd North. I think, as others have mentioned, the impact on commercial businesses needs to be measured, because we don't want something that is going to hurt. I mean, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a list? Sorry. No, we don't. Okay. Sorry, I'm late.
I'm Don Davies. I've lived in the city for 33 years. So it's an interesting, consistent pattern I've seen the last few years, is that right after an election, all of a sudden there's a tax increase or a fee. You know, like we just had an election. Now we have the fee. Now, in 4 years from now, our memory's going to all fade and we're going to forget about it, and you get reelected. Wow. Smart thinking. The idea of it, because where does this stop? Are we going to have a police fee? Are we going to have a fire protection fee? Are we going to have a payroll increase fee? I mean, we have what's called the general fund. I work for a city. I know how that works. All the money for tax money goes into the general fund, and then you make decisions as to where that is to be spent. Where is the most important place to put that money? Well, roads are one of the most important. Wouldn't you put that high priority? But the last election, we saw that they increased the taxes by about 98%. And where did a lot of that money go? In raises. Gigantic raises, chief, alone. My word, I worked for Salt Lake City for 34 years. And in the last 20 years, we got 1% per year. Now, maybe you could freeze that for the next 10 years and take that money that you would have allocated, because it's compounding. You give somebody a 40% raise, it's compounding through the years. So you need to allocate the money to where it's really needed. I agree that roads need to be fixed. Let's make that a priority, and let's look at the whole budget and say, okay, we'll have enough money coming in. Then we have to make cuts elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jake, Mayor, Daniel Luke. I've been a resident of Kaysville for about 26 years, just out west by the New Smiths. Gorgeous development, so A+ to the Planning Commission and whatnot. I'm grateful for the last comments about watching where the allocation of funds is going. And I didn't plan on coming up here tonight to spend. I really want the City Council and the people gathered tonight, the recorder, whoever's maybe recording this, to take note, because I work for the federal government. I'm just a little mailman in town. I think I've known several through town here, Larry and the others, and Mayor. One allocation where we could perhaps look at saving some money and allocating it towards our roads is what I see on a daily basis. I'm just in the old town here by the Tabernacle, and I guess it goes throughout the city, but I see not a city employee, but a Splenda, our tree service. I'm here to say, and I've thought about it for several months, I will drive by in the morning to start my mail route down by the Tabernacle. It's 9:30, it's 10 in the morning, and those two big trucks will be parked on a road with those pylons blocking people's driveways. And there will be no work going on through the day until I return to that section of the town at 2:30. And there will be 2, 3, or 4 employees with their safety vests on, lying on their backs in people's yards or leaning on their truck hoods, Eagle Scouts honor, for seemingly hours at a time texting, and no work going on, and no grinding of the tree branches, or, as was the case yesterday, branches as long as from me to you, council, lying in front of people's driveways 4 or 5 hours. Now, some work is being done in backyards, and that's wonderful, but twice or 5 times, probably 30 times in the past calendar year, all over town. And I was going to be an animator for Disney growing up as a kid. Aesthetics in landscaping is important, but some of the trees downtown are cut in the most grotesque manner around those wires. I feel bad for the residents. Perhaps some saving could be there.
Very good. Yeah. Thanks.
My name's Warren Duke. I've lived in Kaysville for 50 years, and so my voice gets shaky. But the roads definitely need some attention. There needs to be some money appropriated for the roads. But the big question I'm sure you're confronted with is, where does that money come from? And argument about fees, argument about taxes, and what Mr. Hill said a minute ago about assessing businesses so much per square foot based on their businesses, they're not going to pay, but the consumer will pay it. I've been in business for 25 years, and every time I got an increase that affected my bottom line, the only way I could stay in business is to pass it on. And so you have to take that into consideration, I think, a little bit, because it will impact some of these businesses' bottom line. They need to pay their fair share probably, but they pass it on. I'm here to tell you, because I did it for 20-some odd years. You can't operate a business without making.
Thank you.
I have one addition. I lived in Europe for a while, a little town of Rodenbach. The street in front of my house was maybe laid there about 200 years ago. So maybe the issue is that if you do road repairs, maybe you do a road that's going to last. The cobblestone roads, you know, they last 100, 200, 500 years.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Randy Von Bosse. I have been looking at this road fee for a long time, and my opinions are very flux, but there are some things that I feel pretty strongly about, and I just wanted to speak to those. My main concern with the road fee is that it becomes a regressive tax, meaning for those individuals who are on the lower end of an earning scale here in Kaysville, a fee becomes much bigger to them than it does to those who are making much more money in the city. I understand that they may have as many trips on the road, but a lot of times this is not the case, and I am concerned that the fee are already struggling to make ends meet. I know that that is a difficult thing to face. As I've asked about it in the past and said, you know, can we look at registration records or even DMV records like it was mentioned, the answer always becomes it becomes too difficult, that is a hard thing to do. For me, that is not a substantial answer. It might be hard. That's why we have government in place is to do those hard things. And so I for the last few hours, I've been at my kids' school gathering signatures for an initiative to raise money for schools. And as I had people come and talk to me, and I would explain it to them, the first thing they would say is, you know, everything you just said, all I heard was you want to raise my taxes or money. But then it was always followed up by, I don't mind giving it as long as I know that it's going towards what you're telling me it's going to. And so as we look at the needs of the roads, I would just hope that either if we go with the road fee, we do the hard work of tying it into something substantial more than just something arbitrary, or we look at more seriously the property tax route, and in that case, write up the proposal, write up the increase so that it goes into a specific fund. And I know that's not very commonly done. The common thought is, well, it has to go to the general fund, but I have seen legislation written so that it can go into a specific fund. So, and either make it so that we do the hard work when we have a fee, or we do the property tax and we put it into a specific fund. Additionally, I've heard it said, the idea of sunsetting the fee after 5 years. I personally would love to see this happen. I think that a lot of the concern I hear is that once there's a fee, it's there forever and government never gets rid of it. And I think setting a sunset of 5 years is a perfect way to protect against that fear. And it just, yes, it's more work, but again, that's what government is here for. The last thing is I do have concerns about charging churches and schools. As they are nonprofit, it just will get passed on to double tax certain people, and I hope that there's good communication moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Donna Rigby. I formed my comments in the form, I put my comments in the form of questions, so I don't expect answers, but I would like you to think about them. One is the Proposition 1 money. Proposition 1 was on the ballot a few years ago. It passed. Does Kaysville City have access to that money? And in the report or the proposal. Why are multi-unit residents paying less? Most have at least 2 vehicles, same as single family unit residents. Again, my concern is fee, the word fee, because it seems to be never ending and always increasing. And so I would question the process for increasing the fee. I think that needs to be very carefully reviewed. And also, I would agree with the sunset rule. Also, a very stringent process for raising that fee. I would just like to state that I would oppose the fee, as has been stated. I hate to say increase my taxes because I don't like that either, but I think the process is a little more stringent and it's not arbitrarily left up to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Dean Tibbetts. I live on Sunset Drive. Traveled Sunset Drive by the trucks. And if you want to really get a wake up, drive down. I live about halfway between Western and Burton Lane. There's no pavement left. And no matter what the road department does, the patches are not working. I was told 7 years ago that was going to be, that was the first road that was going to be taken care of. They've not lifted a finger other than patching it in a situation. Not only that, but the trucks that come up there, coming from the south, coming north, they accelerate up the hill. When they hit the top of the hill, they just keep it right on the, And a lot of those trucks are running 40 and 45 miles an hour. These are big trucks. And when was the last time we had our police department down there with a radar unit? It's been a long time since I've seen anybody. It's time we do something. And just to repair a lot more vigilant on taking care of what we have here. I've lived here for 47 years. And most of that 47 years was really good. The last few years has not been too great. And it's not because they build all the homes, it's because the traffic is just horrendous. So let's get something done. And let's make sure we do it right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, just a very quick point of clarification. Any business in this town that is a franchise business does not have the option to raise prices of their product. That is all dictated by the corporate.
Thank you. And if I could just mention, I know I just got here, but if you have had a turn, let's one trip up, if that's okay.
My name is Steve Weir. I've been a member of Kaysville for about 25 years. I was looking across our property tax increases on my home, $22 from 15 to 16, $88 from 16 to 17, $64. This $8 a month adds up to $96. So that's more of an increase than my property tax have been going up. And I want you to understand that that increase, along with all the other increases, are cumulative to my family budget. For example, I received a health care cost of 34%, pretty significant. So my question to you is, I understand that gasoline tax is collected by the federal government and the state. The state revenue for this last year was $480 million. On to beat the trees harder with the state and said, hey, I need a part of that. You got $480 million there. So that would be my recommendation, is you go back and beat on the trees a little harder and ask them for your share. I'm sure other cities are going to do that, but you need to beat harder. And I would also agree with them that you need to have a sunset on this fee. I'm opposed to the fee. It needs to be a part of property taxes if you so choose to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Mark Rigg, 70 years. I have a question. If in the off chance it happens that you don't spend all that you collect in 1 year, I know that's a hard thing to think about, but if you don't, what happens to the excess? Does that go into the next year's budget, or does it get dropped back into the general fund to be used for whatever? That's written in it?
First thing you said.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Roger Beechler, and I'm a resident of this. My ancestors developed this town, and I'm proud of this town, have been proud of this town until the last few years. And I'm feeling that now we're getting taken advantage of. Some of the things that I'm concerned about is the fact that we're still trying to get over the fact that the council and the mayor, not this particular one possibly, but some of them, they basically steamrolled us when they put in the palace next door. We feel that that's wrong. We voted against it twice. They still put it in. And
oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. We don't clap. Sorry.
Okay. And now they're trying to do the same thing again. They're trying to take money out of our pockets that we don't have. There's quite a few citizens in this town that are senior citizens or close to it. And we're on a fixed income. We're being taxed to death. We don't need any more taxes. We don't need any more fees. Where's it going to stop? We don't know. It said it's fixed and dedicated to road services. It's to say that will it ever go away? Even after we build out of our town in 8 to 10 years, what's going to happen then? We want to make sure that we don't lose that to some other thing. If we do impose some kind of a fee, whatever it is, so that the next group of people come through here will not be able to change that to their desires. Again, like I say, we are seniors, there's a lot of us here, and we need help. We need our help too, okay? I'd like us to look at, as mentioned before, we have $4 million coming in from sales tax. They didn't mention the gas tax. We have that as well. They did mention the fact that we could possibly use vehicle registration fees or driver's license fees. I've seen that happen in other areas, and it works very well. Don't do the impact fees. Please look somewhere else. We have plenty of property tax helps us. If we do with property tax, it would definitely help us as a community here in Kaysville to at least recoup some of our funds that we're putting out to you guys. So that might be an option, even though it doesn't, not dedicated, we could probably make it look like it can be done that way and put it to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ray Crawford. I've lived here for about 16 years. This is home. I'm not as studied up on this subject as I wish I had been, but I have a few thoughts I wanted to share. The first one was I've seen, probably more out of state than here in Utah, restrictions on weights and sizes of vehicles and number of axles and so on for a certain capacity. Why are we allowing trucks that exceed that to drive down those roads and beat the living daylights out of them? We end up paying for it. Something else I've heard that I think is a good thing is the sunset provision. That would make it an easier sell on your part to get the funds that we need to get our roads back up to snuff. Third thing is, and I haven't heard it mentioned yet, is maybe a referendum or something along those lines, and to actually respect the results of the referendum. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Kind of the general rule in council chambers is we don't clap or boo or that, just so that it makes it a comfortable atmosphere for everybody.
My name is Clytie Adams. I've lived here 50 years. Love it. And I served on the Governor's Art Council for several years. I understand when you have only so much money and the discrepancy between that and what is asked for. So I'm looking at you people and thinking you have a very, very difficult problem. Having said that, I know that several years ago they voted down a large, what they call box store, because the people in this community did not want that kind of commercial entity close to them, right? So they call it a bedroom community. I'm good with that. But I do think that maybe if that's the kind of community and you don't have that tax base from the commercial part, then perhaps the people who want a quieter community might be okay with paying a little more for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have to compliment all of you. I've learned so much from listening to you, and this is what local government is all about to me. And we do have about 5 minutes left, but if we don't have any more comments, we can just close our public hearing. Any last comments? Yes, come on up.
My name is Shelley Davis. I spoke with you when you were running for mayor, and I've met with Michelle. Hi. I am a resident here for 11 years. I have a business here, and I have a total working with me. And raising the costs for this road fee, I even printed everything off because, excuse me, I want to be able to understand everything. And I don't want to have to pass this on to the consumer. I didn't get the gentleman's name that talked about that. And I struggle with how much I'm going to have an out of pocket for an increase in business licenses, the assessment, more into it. I think it's something, I agree with the people that have come up, needs to be rethought. I'm worried about the small business people. What's going to happen to us? I'm not big like Smith's. I feel for Bowman's, Fresh Market. It's a little scary what it's going to do. I've already raised some of my fees, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm a bit concerned where this might be heading. Please think about us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Name's Joseph Ely. I live down the street here, and I'm a 14-year resident. I love the community. But when I first moved here, my taxes were extremely low, which I loved. But in 14 years, they have tripled. So what are they going to look like in 14 more years? Will I be forced to leave here because I can't stay to live here? Plus, in that 14, been one road repair in front of my house or on my street. So with the funds that we already have, where are you doing the repairs? Is there somebody that's going out and assessing the roads? This road's good, this road's okay, that one needs repair. Because right now, in 14 years, I have not seen anything in my neighborhood but guys cutting trees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we have time for one more person, if we have any takers. Thank you.
And just an observation, it sounds like a lot of the problem occurs with heavy equipment that uses our roads. And I'm wondering if that heavy equipment that we might invite in as a builder of a new home or a building of a business, if they shouldn't share maybe for their use of the roads and the detriment that it occurs by their use, if they shouldn't share a larger percentage of that cost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we will now close our public hearing out and sharing your thoughts on this. And going forward, this will be brought up on the 15th as a work item. We'll start trying to gather everything everybody said and come up with some modifications. And this will not be voted on until at least March. But stay in contact with us. Stay in contact with your city council people. We love to hear from you, and we'll keep you posted. So thank you. All right. How'd it go?
I'll call you today. Oh, for fun. You gonna come see me, or you gonna be fine? It's fine. I can do either one. Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, that's a good idea. Okay. Yeah, he was not happy with us. Why didn't you tell us we had a lot of this? Well, I didn't think you needed to know. Guess what?
Council members, if we could have you come up, we're about ready to start our meeting. All right. I'd like to call the February 1st, 2018 City Council meeting to order, and we will start with a prayer, and I will offer that, followed by Councilmember Dave Adams doing the. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered here tonight. We are grateful for the good residents of Kaysville and for the kind and thoughtful way in which they express themselves, and we're grateful for the opportunity to live in this country and for the freedoms and opportunities that affords us. Please bless us as we discuss issues this evening, that we will have thy guiding spirit with us, and please bless those who are suffering in our community at this. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
Will the audience rise? Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, the first item that we have is our consent items. Can we have a motion on that?
I'll second that.
It has been moved by Councilmember Garn, seconded by Councilmember Page. All in favor? And let's go counterclockwise tonight.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Consent items pass 5-0. Do we have any declarations of conflicts of interest?
I had one to state.
Thank you.
On the item for the lease coming up, there's an applicant that I've previously volunteered with, and they're there. I didn't know about this, and I don't feel that it's a reason to not vote, but
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councilmember Barber. All right. So first on our action items, adopting an agreement for the annexation and development of land between Kaysville City and Frost Family Real Estate, LLC. Please.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we addressed this last council meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had several issues that we were still trying to work through with the applicant. We've made a lot of progress, and we've met with them several times. I do feel quite to the point where I think we could recommend that you pass it. So the recommendation from staff would be to table this item again until we can come back. I think we're really close. I think it's just down to 1 or 2 items, and I believe the applicant would also appreciate a little bit more time. Of course, they are here and probably could answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Applicant, would you like to speak to this?
Matt Gates. I would just agree with everything he said and see if there's any questions that the council has.
Okay. Thank you. All right. All right. I think I'd entertain a motion to table this item. Vote for the ordinance annexing the real property. Do I need to do these in 2 separate motions?
I think so.
It's 2 separate items on the agenda, so it should be 2 motions.
Okay. All right.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So if we were to table this action item A, this first one with the annexation, obviously it needs more work. Would we be able to bring it back in a work session?
I think that's a great idea.
Work item, I mean.
I think that's a good idea. So staff, if you could put this on our work item agenda next time, that would be helpful. Thank you. All right. I'd entertain a motion to table the first.
I'll make a motion that we table.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is been motioned by Councilmember Barber and seconded by Councilmember Hanson. Let's vote. Councilmember
Is there
Barber.
room for any comment?
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Please.
Just a quick one. As I studied where the agreement is at thus far, I think there are, I don't know if multiple is the right word. I don't know how many property owners there are up there that are annexing their properties in. But I want to throw a quick word out there. I do feel it's a little bit of an undue burden to place all of the water infrastructure needs onto one of those property owners. So I think it ought to be an equitable, whether it's per acre, it's, whatever each deeded owner of land who is coming into the city, if, in fact, the annexation does take place. So I think it ought to be borne on all property owners' shoulders, not just one.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Adams. All right, are you ready to vote? Any other comments before? Okay, Councilmember Barber?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Great. Motion passes 5-0. Yes, sir. Come to the microphone. Thank you.
I'm Shalay Trujillo, and I have the work meeting. Can we also still leave it as a action item?
No, it'll be on our work agenda, and then the following council meeting, it'll be an action item.
And so there's no way to undo that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Okay, I will now entertain a motion to table approval of the ordinance annexing real property.
Can we?
Yes, Councilmember Barber.
Can you speak to your proposal to table it?
They're linked.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure it was
clear. So the first one was the agreement that would actually cause the annexation. So that's true. Wanting to table one, hopefully we recommend that you table the second one as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Can I have a motion to table this item?
Well, I'll move that we table the ordinance annexation real property located as discussed.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Page, seconded by Councilmember Barber. Any discussion? Yes, Councilmember Garn.
Just one point I would make. I do believe that an item can meeting by someone who voted in the majority. There was a unanimous vote. So if a council member did wish to revisit whether it goes to a work session or an action item, they could make that motion. And if it was seconded and a majority of the council agreed, that could be changed.
Okay. And so that would happen either in this meeting or the next, correct?
Right.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay. So it was moved by Councilmember Page and seconded by Councilmember Barber. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. And let's go for a vote. Councilmember Adams.
The only comment I had, if you don't mind, was just that this portion.
We didn't clarify. Do you have? It would seem to me that they would both go on work since they're linked. But
I would.
City manager.
It seems like the annexation could be one, and it seems like they could be separate. Are we looking at action or?
They're definitely separate and could be addressed separately. However, we would prefer the annexation be done first, just as a matter of, okay. We're agreeing to these certain terms before the annexation actually took place, which would be the ordinance.
Okay. And would we want to specifically say that we wanted this to be a work or a study or work or an?
I think that would be appropriate if you would.
Okay.
And then if you think about it, however, if we do have this as an action item, it would be addressed first. So we would probably need to move some things around if that were the case.
Okay. All right. So any thoughts on putting this as an action item?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of this, just thinking on the fly. I think, you also have the option of tabling it again. I sort of favor where it's already been a work item and there's just a couple of items that still need to be resolved, that if for any reason they were not resolved, you could benefit to having it as a work session. So we have a motion on the table, however, so I guess it's a little complicated in my mind, because if I make a substitute motion to move it to the action item list, then I would only do that if we could then revisit the other.
You know, I don't think we specified with this item if it was going to go on action or work. Yeah. Or work.
Right, but my point is, if we say we move this one to the action item list, it wouldn't make any sense to do so unless we also move the first item back.
Okay.
But we have a motion on the table, so that's the confusion, I guess.
Parliamentarian?
We could.
Then, yeah.
My suggestion would be to fulfill this motion here, and then if any of the council members have the desire to revisit the first one, like Councilmember Garn suggested, that's in our rules of procedure. They could make a motion to revisit that first item.
All right, very well.
And we could do that this week or next week.
I think you do it officially in a meeting, correct?
And you're right. It can be in the meeting it takes place in, or the next meeting, and after that, it can't be revisited.
Okay.
So we could come next week, wanting to move one to an action item, take action, or
on the
work on the other.
15th.
You can come next week. We'll
be on the beach. Actually.
Yeah, I actually.
Yes.
You can join me.
All right. Okay. So we have a motion to table this and currently have it as a work item. That is the current motion. And Councilmember Adams.
Do we have any public comment?
You know, I think if we're tabling this, we're not going to take public comment, if that's all right.
Did we have anyone sign up?
Oh, you're right. And nobody signed up for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Votes on me. Starts
Yeah.
with me. Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So then I would make a motion to revisit. We just passed to the work agenda.
Okay.
And I would like to revisit that one issue. So I'd make a motion to put it on the work item instead of, I'm sorry, did we put the second one on the work item?
They're currently both on work.
Okay.
Before you make a motion,
Yeah.
can I just say that continually tabling things is messy. It looks like you haven't done your homework. So I don't like doing that.
And I agree.
But
The only thing I would say is we also don't want to push work out longer than it needs to.
Got it.
And so if it can be resolved, which I think both parties, the applicant, feel like they could work it out in 2 weeks. So I guess maybe I'm taking a risk that it could be tabled again, but.
All right. We have faith that this is going to work out. Okay. So you've made a motion.
Yes.
To move the first to action item.
Yes.
All right. Do we have a second for that?
I'll actually second that.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Garn and seconded by Councilmember Page. Any discussion? All right. Yes, Councilmember Barber.
So and I actually agree, I think that'd be great to be able to work on it. I was pretty confident with the applicant and with the city that we were going to be in agreement, but where both are telling session is so that we would have time to hear what they had come to and the agreements. But if we feel like we can do that in the form of an action item, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Very good. All right.
As long as it'll leave room for public comment on the final agreement, right?
Very,
the agreement
absolutely.
keeps shifting, so the public's probably going, hey.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Thank you. All right. Let's begin our vote. Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
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 Thank you. That motion passes 5-0. Now I would entertain a motion to readdress. Oh, I guess I'm leading. Sorry. Somebody might want to bring that up.
No, I think that was appropriate, and I'll make that motion to reconsider item B for approval of an ordinance and move it to the action item from the work item.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Good.
All right. Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Garn and seconded by Councilmember Barber. Any comments? All right. Let's start with Councilmember Page.
Yeah. Aye.
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 All right, and that passes 5-0. All right, thank you. All right, now we are moving on to authorizing a lease agreement with Jim Puffer Landscaping Incorporated and Shadows of Fear Charity Haunted House for lease of city property at autumnal charity event. That was a long one.
Glad I didn't have to read it. At the last meeting, we presented the results of a lease opportunity at the Operations Center. We discussed it. We discussed two interested parties that had submitted interest in leasing that property. After evaluating both, we made a recommendation in that closed session from the staff to contract with both parties, if possible. We have met with both parties in between these meetings and found that we believe that both would be congruent. And so what you have before you today is a resolution giving the staff parties as we discussed last meeting. So.
All right. Okay. So we did not have anybody sign up to speak to this, so we will not have. I need to make I've made a mistake when I started this, and I opened things up to anybody who wanted to comment. But what we're going to try to do is stick with who signed up on the sheet. So we did not have anybody sign up on the sheet.
I signed up on the sheet for the prior one. I didn't get a chance to talk. My name's on there.
Sorry, we have it right there.
I thought you guys
You're right.
Not A, not B.
Oh.
It was all mixed together.
You're right. You're right. What is the appropriate course of action here? We've moved on to the next item. Parliamentarian.
Can we make a
Nick is saying that I think you can take public comment if it's signed up, and especially if it was just a mistake.
Yeah, it was
I would
a
also
mistake. I'm
add,
so
Mayor,
sorry.
that this is your meeting, and I think you have a lot of latitude in making
All right.
those kinds of calls too.
Okay. So Gregory Frank did sign up for public comment, so please come and share your thoughts with us.
My name is Gregory Frank. Thank you for the opportunity. I was a little confused. Over the past couple of weeks, I have exchanged emails with the City Council concerning the proposed annexation of residential property above Highway 89. Although the City has heard my arguments against the annexation, I feel that those arguments need to be part of the public record. I have presented 3 facts to the Council that clearly show that the cost of infrastructure maintenance of residential property exceeds the revenues gained. 1. In their support for expanding the commercial tax base in the city, city staff and city council members have in the past made the argument that revenues from residential properties do not meet the cost of services and maintenance. 2 weeks ago, I again asked a city staff member if it is generally true that residential revenues fall short of the cost of residential service. That person, just like a few years ago, affirmed that, in general, costs are greater than revenues. Number 2, the city is in the process of assessing a new road tax. This tax is a solid example that the city does not have enough money to maintain the current roads in the city. Adding more roads will only exacerbate the problem. It has created more roads to maintain and thus the shortfall. The proof in the road tax is hitting us square in the face as this council appears to embrace the idea of annexation and at the same breath impose a road tax. Number 3, I spent some time doing some research on the internet and found studies that affirmed the argument that in general residential costs exceed revenue. Only through high fees and taxes are municipalities without a sufficient commercial tax base able to keep their heads above the financial onslaught. I found no studies that suggest there is ample revenue for residential property to adequately meet. In the face of the evidence, I am bewildered by the support for annexation. I am disappointed that I could not receive any more than statements like, "I believe this won't cost the city," without any data to support the statements. And I wonder if the conflict of interest held by a city staff member has any bearing on the council's motivation. I just don't get it. Adding more infrastructure to maintain means more cost. It is just that simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have time for comment or?
No, not at that.
Mr. Frank, if you don't mind, I'd like to speak with you afterwards.
Yes.
That's
okay.
it.
Thank you. All right. So we are going back. All right. Nobody has signed up to speak to this. So I will go to council questions. Ready? Councilmember Barber.
Are we going to have a staff presentation on this?
He did.
Was there anything more to be said? I felt like it got cut off short. But.
No, I think I finished.
Yeah. Okay. Councilmember Adams.
I have a question.
Well, one point on logistics, could both parcels be pushed east to put a little bit of a buffer on Deseret Drive? Who's the west and who's the east in these two parties? Which party will occupy which parcel?
Mr. Puffer Landscaping in the yellow, based on discussions with each party, that was their preference. This is just
do we have any provisions for a buffer along there? I can imagine, it's all going to be outside storage. Imagine, people who are living right on the west side may develop a concern. There's a nice tree buffer along the city shops. The nursery is, it's kind of a general, not too commercially fill. Anyway, just a thought.
Okay, thank you.
Can I answer that too? I think one other thought was that I think city staff were using, it's a third, but all of that back portion of the shops, and maybe Andy, do you know if that was all being used? I think that was the majority of the area where they were using, wanting to move that storage that was on Burton Lane and other things like that.
So I talked to the staff that uses that property. They designated that dirt road that runs as kind of the boundary of what they would prefer to limit other uses to.
And I'm talking like a 15-foot buffer, not 40 foot.
These parcels are not both full 1 acres. The Shadow of Fear suggested they could live with less than a full acre. So that
we could push it as far back off the road as we possibly could.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Have these parties started taking occupancy of the land already?
Mr. Puffer, we were alerted that Mr. Puffer started moving some rock and I think some equipment as well this week. When I found out about that, I called Mr. Puffer, and he had after the last meeting, he had come in wanting a report from the staff, and we told him that our direction was to head and work towards a lease. He at that point gave a check to the city and proceeded to talk. When he went out to when I talked to him, he said that he wanted to take advantage of some good weather, and also that he felt like the residents in that area wanted him to vacate his property as soon as possible. So he started moving things at that point. I asked him, when I spoke to him, to not do anything else, that tonight's vote is the most important, that he doesn't have a lease, and that essentially he's trespassing at this time. So
okay.
Obviously, if this isn't something we do tonight, he'd need to.
Thank you. All right. Additional questions? Okay. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Well, I move that we authorize the lease agreement with Jim Puffer Landscaping and Shadows of Fear Charity Haunted House on the property mentioned.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, moved by Councilmember Page and seconded by Councilmember Garn. Any comments? Okay, great. Are we ready to vote? I think we're with Councilmember Garn.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-1. All right. Now, approval of fiber consultant agreement with Connext, and I believe Shane is going to present that.
I will kick that off. Ryan's here too to answer any questions you might have, but we've talked about this the last two meetings, which I think have been really good discussions. This item would enter in an agreement with Connext for fiber connection to our substations. The staff recommendation is for you to approve this contract and that we would pay for this with power funds. And I think at the last meeting we had what the cable needs are now or what the fiber needs are now and what we were trying to install. As a matter of good planning, we're trying to install as much fiber at this time as we possibly can to not being able to foresee future needs. So if you do want to get away from power paying for all of this, I would encourage you to include that in your motion, how you'd like to break that out. I think Ryan has refined that number to $19,000 being the difference between the fiber that we need and the fiber that we hope to use for future expansion. And with that, I'll leave you, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We don't have anybody signed up to speak to this item, so we will not have questions. Questions on this?
Just more of a concern.
Councilmember Adams.
Sorry, yeah, I'll wait for comment. That's more of a concern.
Well, okay.
Or I guess I can format a question. Did we do anything on the budgeting concern that I raised last time? Are we allocating it from, or is it all still being paid with the power funds?
The staff recommendation is to pay for it all with power funds, but as I just mentioned, if you'd like to make a motion to change that in any way, happy to do that. I think our justification for that is we don't know what those additional fiber strands would be used for. So to say that another fund should pay for that is kind of like it's the general fund. It's saying that the general fund needs to pay for that, but they're not really the owner of that strand either because we don't really know what we're going to use it for at this time. So if the power fund pays for it, it'll stay on the books as an asset to the power fund, but the general fund is the same way. So if you'd like to pay for it with the general fund, that's understandable as well.
So if other entities within the corporation of the city end up using those fiber lines, will they have to pay the power company for them?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. That's a good
And then if I
clarification.
may, if we broaden that out one more time, if other entities outside of the Kaysville City Corporation want to use that infrastructure, will they have to reimburse the power company for the infrastructure? Lines, the trenches, everything.
That's right, and the power company would receive that revenue, or general fund, whoever purchases it.
Councilmember Garn.
One question, I think I sort of know the answer to this, that it depends, but has there been any return on investment analysis? I know that there are some advantages here, for example, to be able to read all the meters in the city without actually having to have meter readers go around and pick up the signals. Also, there may be in the future when we have smart appliance, controlling appliances in our homes with smartphones or whatever, that there could be additional savings to the public. Is that something we've kind of tried to assess? You have a cost here, an expenditure of the city. What's the benefit both to the city and to residents? And is it more than the cost of implementation?
I don't have anything here with me. If we're speaking just about the connections to the fiber to the substations, I don't think I've seen anything definitive that would say financially what kind of a benefit that is. I think with the next item with the automated, I did break that down into a lot of pros and cons. I think some of those were financial, and other of them were outage management, which is hard to put a price on, but we could probably do that a little bit as well. So I think probably your question is better served with this next item, but at the same time, I don't probably have any definitive numbers for you tonight either. So.
Thank you. And just one follow-up. And I knew that was going to be the answer, that we don't have actual numbers. But is it fair to say that in your assessment, the ROI would be positive if you were taking all factors into consideration?
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of the argument we've had on the Power Commission as well, is that the upside is very high. We had a meeting just today with Councilmember Barber and Mayor Witt talking about the piece of this that potentially could empower our residents to have an app on their phone where they can start to manage their own power usage at a real-time basis. If you think about Mr. Stevenson, Jordan from our Power Commission, when he talked to us, he talked about the bus and how you need to have a certain size bus to take all your passengers, but when you're driving and there's only one passenger, you're not being very efficient. And that's the same as with our power company. We need to have a certain amount of resource, and even though have it on hand. And so I think as we engage our public and educate them on the power usage, and maybe even economically incentivize them to lessen their usage during our peak times, that will have some real paybacks. Can we quantify that? Probably in some regard we can take a stab at it, but it may be a little bit hard to quantify as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? No?
One other.
Yes.
If the day ever arrives that our power company ceases to be able to, I guess we're 15% less than Rocky Mountain Power right now. If the day comes that we are unable to do that, and it becomes almost a power company, do we view this expense as something that adds to the value of the power company?
I believe it does, absolutely. I would think that if we were in a position where we're trying to be acquired by someone, I think having these smart meters would is it a dollar for dollar? Probably not, but it's probably like something you do to your vehicle to improve it. You're probably not going to get, if you spend $2,000, you're probably not going to get $2,000 more, but it's going to be worth more, and I think that's a very fair way to put it.
And Councilmember Adams, you were referring to the fiber, not the meters, right?
Meters, yeah.
Well, I guess you could dovetail it into both.
Yeah.
They're both capital and improvements to the power company.
Have a monetary value. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Still waiting on that evaluation of what our power company's worth. That'd be great to see one day. Could be a lot of road repair money in there.
All right. Okay. I think I would entertain a motion at this time.
Move to approve the contract for substation fiber optic project with Connext.
And a second, anyone?
I'll second.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Garn and seconded by Councilmember Page. Any final comments?
It wasn't a question, so I didn't say it earlier, but on the return on investment, I've been looking at it quite a bit, and once again, we love data and numbers. It would be great to see. But I think the efficiency that can come to residents as well as the city is hard to quantify, but it's something that's really important in this, as well as the sustainability and the reliability that this will bring our city. So those are hard to quantify, but in looking into it, and a lot of the customer experience that we've been investigating this week is really promising, and I think it will enable our residents and our city to be more efficient and hopefully more fiscally conservative if they so choose.
Okay, thank you.
Is to address resident comments I've gotten about the project. It's just to make sure, because there is no ownership of that $19,000 of extra line, I think it's wise to put it in, but just to remember and just have me on record saying that future revenue that comes from that goes back and pays the power company for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right.
Is it written into the contract? That if a fiber company comes and uses it for commercial retail purposes, that they indeed will have to pay us solid, flat out for the cost of the infrastructure.
I'm not sure if it's written in.
Rent the lines.
But in a future that happens, we will bring a contract to you, and it will say that, and so it'll talk about who's leasing it, whether it's the water department or an outside entity or whomever, and we'll have that all in that contract. So it would say that at that time.
I guess that's where I'm a little hung up. Rough numbers, I think out of the 72 lines, it's like 10-ish, 15-ish lines that the power company's after, and they really don't, However, I won't belabor this, but I'm still a little hung up on that, and budgeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we're ready to vote. Yeah, and where are we at? Is it
The expressed concerns, it's an A, not
okay.
for the project overall, but.
Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 4-1. All right, next we will have the agreement to provide automated meter infrastructure with Eaton Cooper Power Systems.
We kind of got started on this one as well, so we could probably just continue the discussion. But what's before you is a resolution for us to be authorized to enter into an agreement with Eaton Cooper Power Systems. And of course, I haven't seen them because I haven't turned around, but
they're here.
They are here. If we have any questions for them as the consultant, and Ryan and I are here as well.
Okay. To speak to this item, so we will not have public comment on this. And we'll go directly to council member questions, if any.
Does this, so in the packet, the last several packets, I've noticed too that it talks about the water meters too, the Neptune or the 900 eyes. Is that included with this too? Are we authorizing a huge purchase of water meters too with this?
No, what we recommended was not going with the Neptune meters as well. I think it was a $3 million about price tag. And so we've backed down to the 1.6. These are round numbers of just the power side of things, the Neptune meters. And we were just talking about this today about what do we do next with water, and that may be the next discussion we need to have. But our recommendation is for them. We've evaluated them together at every step of this process, trying to see if it works to have them in one area. I think at one point Ryan was really pushing for that because it would be easier for him, but I think he's even come around to it's going to be better in the long run to have them addressed separately. And with some other technologies, I think we can do it that way. So,
is a question about that appropriate since it was in our packet? A quick question about the water meters?
Yes.
So we've installed X amount of water meters, diverting away from that now.
I think with the Public Works Department, we would like to get back on in having a systematic plan of installing those meters again. They have held off. They have only been replacing meters that go bad with the new Neptune meters, so that's just been a handful in the last maybe almost 2 years.
Same model, though?
Same model.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you then.
Yeah.
The last comment on that will be that in the packet it talks about how we got a pretty good price on the Neptune meters. I didn't see the pricing, and maybe when you formally bring this, you'll have it in there. But it talked about how Neptune offered, or the supplier offered to install them too, and other meters, which is great. But just a note going forward, I would certainly like to see what that labor cost is in installing those Neptunes. Perhaps that can be done in-house.
Yeah. Okay.
To save even more. Saving compared to the competitors, great, but if we can save more, that's even better.
I did hear, and maybe nobody here in this room remembers, but I did hear what a price per meter for the labor installation was. I want to say $9 a meter, but that I.
Was it 10?
Oh.
I do the Neptune water meter.
Okay.
Oh, this is the rep.
Okay, so I knew it was something like that. So.
Just so you know, we installed for Ogden at $25.
We won't tell Ogden.
All right.
Pretty excited about that.
And what was your name, sir? You didn't come to the mic.
Ken Sheffield. I do meter works.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. All right. Okay, so have we had a motion yet? I've lost track.
We still have questions.
We're still at questions.
Did you have one, Michelle?
It's more of a
Councilmember
comment, so
Okay.
I'll save it.
Any questions at this time? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we move to agree to provide the AMI system with Eaton Cooper Power Systems.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember. Any comments, Councilmember Barber?
So as I looked into this, I expected to see a formal agreement like we had previously. But this is a resolution to allow city staff to go forward with that and make that agreement, right?
That's correct. At this point, we've got still a lot to negotiate on. I don't know if our power company's even decided which meters, because we're choosing the consultant that is meter agnostic. We have some options there that we haven't. I think I have a general idea, but what we would do is we would not go above the price that we've been quoted, and hopefully we'll beat them up until they come down from that.
Comments at this time?
One more comment. Go ahead.
Councilmember Adams.
So comment on in the packet, you'll see the estimates for the software and recurring costs, meter costs. And there's also what Shane mentioned earlier for the consumer web portal and the prepay metering. Those are add-ons that we can add on at a later time. So I think our recommendation is that we wait on that. But we saw some great demos, and I think we have some really good ideas how we can make these accessible to our residents. That decision doesn't have to be made or paid for right now. And also a note on the water one. There is a way that we saw together so you can monitor your water and your power at the same time. So from a resident's perspective, you'll probably not really tell a difference, even though we're actually relying on two different systems for the highest efficiency.
Very nice. Comments? Councilmember Adams.
So what is the rough cost again? How much?
1.6 is in my mind.
1.6? Okay. The only concern that I would express would be that this is 1.6 million and the fiber is around, 440,000-ish? So we're talking about a $2 million expense. Now I know that power fund money is heavily restricted due to Prop 5, so I'm not arguing that. But in the face of these road fees, it seems like we are, maybe the concern I have is in our Saturday work session, which many folks probably don't want to listen to. Extremely boring, 8 hours of tape.
Hey.
Well, okay, except for Michelle. There was a comment raised in the meeting by our city manager that the power rates may need to go up again one day. And so when I reflect on that, and I reflect on, yes, we have $7 million or so in the power reserves right now, and it's growing pretty nicely due to Prop 5. But I also don't want to see that as a comfort zone to start exploding it with all of these great technologies that I know that there's a demographic out there who loves that. I'm kind of on the verge of my phone, and I think I'm right at the cusp of that demographic. So for me, there's a cost element there. If this takes $2 million of the power company's money, and then we've got to keep building that reserve back up again, does this drive the rates up in the long run? Because the rates reportedly were supposed to come down. Now, forgive me, I have not done a thorough study on them, but I have been told that they have not come down. So I'm just worried if they were supposed to come down, they didn't go down, are we actually putting more pressure on them to go up? So just would like to have that on the record.
Thanks. I don't think we want to right now, but...
well, it's a little bit relevant, I would imagine.
Absolutely, but...
Good point.
More than a little bit relevant.
All right.
Councilmember Garden. One comment that's hopefully specific to this. I think it's a little bit more than just somebody, looking on their app to control what they turn off and turn on at various times. Although a lot of that could be automated and could certainly save people money. I won't go into the very complex issue of what drives power costs because there's so many different factors there. But one of the things this does for the city too, to instantly monitor. So right now when there's a blackout or there's a power outage or something like that, the only way the city knows about that is when someone calls in, says, my power's out. Whereas with this technology, the city will instantly know when there's a power outage. And so the technology isn't just, oh, gee whiz, I have a new app on my phone. It really is very important for where the entire power industry is going. Thanks.
Very good. All right. Great. Any other comments? All right. I think we're ready to vote. So we start with Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
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 Too much money piling up, Bay.
Okay. Motion passes 4-1. All right. Next item on our agenda, impact fee facilities plan analysis, and Andy's going to do that for us. Thanks.
About a month ago, we brought this to you. Just back up a little bit. A year ago, in the budget, we scheduled items to update the impact fee plans and analysis so that we can review our impact fees, make sure they're where they're supposed to be. We put out requests for proposals on those. Well, we went to people who did them before and asked them to update those programs. We brought those to you about a month ago. You asked us to go out and solicit additional proposals to do that work. That's been done. The actual proposals or requests for proposals were included in the packet. We received very little response. We had one additional proposer for the transportation fee, one for the parks fee, and one for the power. They were all higher than the ones that we'd had before. The ones we had before adjusted their proposals to meet the new criteria. They all kept the same price. Increased their price by about $5,000 to include the power facility plan. Part of the reason that the water and the transportation are somewhat higher than expected was we asked them to also include not just the impact fee plan, but also the capital facility plan. As we talked about road fees and those type of issues earlier this evening, it's very helpful for us to have a very good sound plan moving forward so we know what the priorities are. It helps us a whole lot when we're trying to request grants that may be 2 or 3 years away to look at what that plan is and see where the priorities. So you see the numbers in front of you, the total cost. I don't know if there's the total cost, but the road plan was $30,000, a little change. The other bid was $40,000. Water was at $28,600, and then Lewis Young agreed to do the rest of the work, including the fee analysis, which takes the studies and converts that to what's eligible and recommends an actual impact fee. So we'd recommend that we award those contracts, the water to JB, the transportation to Horrocks, and the rest of the facilities to Lewis Young.
Right. We do not have anybody signed up to speak to this item, so we will not have public comment, and we'll go straight to council questions. Councilmember Adams.
What was the estimated for the power? It was in our last packet. Wasn't it like 40, 50 grand originally estimated?
It was significantly higher than the $5,000 increase.
Yeah. Yeah, as I recall, the numbers were around gross 140, 150 grand. We were waiting on.
We hadn't received the power proposal at that point, but I think Dean suggested that the budgeted amount was in that 30 to 40.
We're, as far as budgeted, we thought we were 130, 140 grand gross on these. We had budgeted for 30 or 40 grand, so we were super over. So it's nice to see that the delay, we're actually going to, we've come down to around 100 grand, which still doesn't make me feel great.
That's what we're recommending, is that.
But at least we didn't have a $40,000 power study awarded that night, so it looks like we saved something. The only other question is, will these studies help us with the road fee on building permits? Will they help us to get that road fee back up? Currently, the road fee is around $550. The road fee was $2,800. Will this help us? We all know the road issues. We don't need to even hint at that. Will this help us to get that?
This will reassess the impact fee, which is assessed on new development, which is what you're referring to. Mm-hmm. And we will look at that based on the data and adjust that fee. I can't tell you at this point whether it will go up or down, but this will give us the data we need to make that decision.
Do we have somebody who is lobbying for this as this study is created to make sure that, I know the impact fees are in a box. They're restricted for certain things. And the road, I got to stick to questions. Sorry, Chairwoman. I'll discuss this.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? I have no questions. Okay. All right, we will move on to, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move to approve the contract for the impact fee facilities plan and impact fee analysis studies for, we can get to the other page, for JUB engineers, Forex engineers, and LYRB.
Okay, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Garn. comments? Councilmember Adams.
Sure, thank you. Where does the money come from to pay for these? General fund?
It will come out of each of the utility funds listed there, which some of those are general fund functions. So water will pay for the water, power will pay for the power. Roads, parks will come out of the general fund.
Okay. And as I was saying earlier, I hope that going forward into this, I hope that somebody is lobbying, because you know, however this is done, because road impact fees on a building permit have to go to specific things like adding a turning lane, widening a road. Development caused us to have to do this to this road to make it bigger or whatever. I think there's some very substantiated claims and very probable claims in West Kaysville where that is, well, the entire city of Kaysville, where that is the case. So I hope somebody is helping, obviously keep this in the parameters, but I hope somebody is pushing for that as we go forward. We were $2,800 prior to 2013. We charged a builder for this line item, and we're now down to $550. I've done studies on this, and there's been quite a few permits that have been let out over the last 4 years, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, I know you have to justify those, but I would argue that I think the justification was there, and many other roads are just shot, as we've heard tonight, and they need widening, which to me would justify the legislative laws as to what that money could be used for. So I hope that we do that going forward. And the last comment I made it earlier or in the last meeting, is we heard from staff that a lot of cities do these reports in-house, where we're almost triple what we budgeted for this. I strongly would still encourage this council to consider asking if we could do some of this as sweat equity and save some of this money as we go into this huge road project that we're faced with. So I think every dollar counts, especially when it comes to business owners.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment that although it would be great if our staff was able to do that, unfortunately, from what I've observed, our staff already are maxed out as far as if you want a good job done, then we really should task this to somebody who has all the tools and is able to devote all of their time to do it. So that's
I'm not an expert on it, but I think a lot of the data is already there. You just the current demands, supply and demand on the system. So I think there is some of it there, but I'll respect your comments too.
All right. Thank you. Other comments on this?
I have a question on
Councilmember Barber.
On the road impact fee, because I think that's a great point to take into consideration, especially where we heard it tonight. But where we're limited, what we can actually assess for impact fees, as we've studied, they go towards new requirements based on the development that's taxing on the city. Do we have to be careful and specify exactly what those will go to?
Yes, you have to identify the projects that are accommodating that, and that's what the fee is based on.
Does these analyses give us guidance about how to go about that, how to assess most efficiently the proper way to put that money towards that's the best benefit for the city? Does that make sense?
Yes, that's the intent of the plan.
I would even say it gives you more of a justification for what you do as opposed to, it's a requirement. It has to be in your impact fee study to be able to spend it on something else. So it's more of a justification for the money that you spend with impact fee.
That was my question, is that the result that we're getting from these studies? So thank you for answering that.
That's the emphasis I was trying to create on. I'm hoping somebody will lobby for that and put built in to meet the current needs.
Well,
Councilmember Garn.
Thank you. I would just comment, not being an expert either, but I think that's why you have a study, and we probably have gone way long, maybe longer than we should have, having a study for various reasons, but we are at that point now. But this changes. The needs change depending on a variety of factors, right? And that all goes into the analysis. Is that right? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Wonderful. Let's vote. Where am I at? Councilmember Page.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Too far out of budget, nay.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. All right. We are going to move into our work items. All right. And we only have one tonight. It is an ordinance amending section 17-1-9. And I'll let Andy explain this.
For some time now, you've been asking the staff to send mailed notices in cases of rezones to adjacent property owners. We've been proposed that we make that ordinance. This ordinance will do that. It would require us to send a mailed notice to the owner record of all the adjacent properties within 500 feet of the property requested for rezone. That's what this ordinance does per your request. That's about all there is to it.
All right. So, questions, or let's go with questions.
Doesn't it also remove the requirement that the rezone be posted in the newspaper?
Yes, it does. The state law says you'll either post it in a paper of local jurisdiction or whatever, or send out the mail. That is not a requirement on rezones.
Excellent.
And that's helpful because sometimes it's hard for staff to meet the paper. Sometimes had odd deadlines that just don't correspond with the council meetings. So it's actually a step in the right direction as far as staff's concerned.
Is it usually in the Clipper?
That's what we've been using over the years, yes.
And that periodical publishes how many times a week?
Once.
Maybe that's why it's so difficult. Not a daily paper.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Councilmember Hanson.
On this, do we have a requirement that has to be posted on our city website?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about in this ordinance, but state code requires 10-9A 205 sub 2 sub B sub 2 says that it has to be posted on the municipality's official website.
So that's already
good. Okay.
And so I think
Member Barber
is the way that it's posted within the planning commission agendas. Is that the way, or do we have for people listening? What's the best way for them to view that?
Maria could probably speak to that best, but I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
Stand up, Maria.
How tall are you?
We have MC that's accessible from our website. You can see our ordinances online there.
Thank you.
I'll save my comment.
Okay.
Can I?
Yes, Councilmember Hanson.
So I want to say this as a question. Do we still post the sign around the area? That will still be there?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Great. Okay. I would be glad to entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance amendment for rezone mailers.
Or I think what we're looking for is, I think we need to move it to that action.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I would amendment to action items for next council meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Barber, seconded by Councilmember Garn. Comments? Councilmember Adams.
Could we? I'd like to have a little deliberation on this because this is a highly critical thing we're doing here. You know, and we've got some agenda items that we just went through tonight that are, are fruit of when this process doesn't work out so good, and not good tasting fruit either. So this process is critical to the people, extremely critical. I would like to discuss leaving the newspaper element and putting it in a more circulated paper, maybe, but one time a week, and I'd like to see us not stop using that periodical. I'm fine with using them. Let's use both. But also in other areas of the city that, maybe a one-time-a-week periodical isn't really the best way to try and get information out to people. And also, I think if you've got some of the areas in West Kaysville, specifically where, 500 feet around a certain parcel that's set to be developed, that might only include X amount of people. So I don't know how we address that. Do we look at, okay, if if a parcel's only going to have like 3 letters go out, I don't think that's right. If it's 500-foot minimum or at least X amount of people surrounding that property. I don't know. I think we can never err on the side of, David Church always said, transparency over efficiency, always. I don't think we should err on the side of ease. We should err on the side of telling more people versus less people.
Thank you. I'm just going to weigh in on this and say that print media is probably not the most efficient way to reach those that would be interested in this, and also be more expensive. So I don't think it would be time or money well spent to continue. Other comments?
It would be easier for staff too, right? To really.
That doesn't concern me. Whatever this body decides is what they will do. What concerns me is that I don't think that it's a efficient use of. I don't think people read the newspaper that much. That I just think it's not a good use of our resources.
Let's hope the paper isn't listening.
Yep.
Just a comment. I know the state legislature is looking at this very issue on reporting in newspapers, and I think you're going to see that taken out as a requirement, because I think they've come to realize that.
Thank you. Councilmember Garn.
And I agree with Mayor Witt and Councilmember Page that really the reach, I mean, I think the issue is the reach is not really there anymore for newspapers. Having said that, I think it's also good to point out that although that's taken away, the need to post in a newspaper, there's substantial improvement in terms of reach here with the 500-foot parameter, and also sending out notices and keeping the signs. So we're certainly doing a much better job with this as it is.
Thank you. Councilmember Barber.
Desire is we're unanimous in wanting to make sure our residents are heard and alerted when there's something that could impact them. And obviously, things could impact me even beyond 500 feet of rezone, even if I live further out than that, which is why, of course, I'm going to go back to we've invested in some much better technologies that will enable us to send notifications and allow people to subscribe. I think putting them in the packets for agenda items or agenda for planning commission, which is where it usually is great, but we can work, and staff has been really wonderful to work to make them even a more accessible place that they can go and they don't have to sift through and maybe be monitoring. So I think even if we remove one requirement, postcards, but also a commitment to exercise all other ways of noticing, I think we can come to a really great agreement for the city.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanson.
My comment's the same as 500 feet, and maybe I've dealt with this in other cities that are close to my home. They did their, I think the requirement's 50 feet. Is that? It's not, but they sent the 50 feet notice, but it affected me because I'm, so the bigger the bigger the net we throw, I think the better, and the more the signs, maybe a little longer, whatever it is, just so when you drive by, you notice something's happening there and you go look it up. And we need to think, as we're proactive as a council, think of other ways we can do to pursue to alleviate the readership of papers going down. So,
how many roads can we pave with that money? That's what I want to know.
What is it? $30 to put it.
That's like 2 square inches of pavement. I'm sure. I'm sure it is. All right. All right. Any other?
The one last comment I wanted to echo, because I had a couple people alert me about this, is that there have been previous rezones where we did mail out mailers. We're quite confident they didn't receive them for whatever reason. So if we made an effort to make sure that we communicated how to update your address or whatever it is, just I want people to know that we are aware that we can improve on that. So state that.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, no, if staff wanted to.
We have a program hooked up to the county recorder's office, and so we can, in simple terms, draw a line around the property on our computer, and it will give us all the current addresses of all the owners of property within that area. So
Excellent.
that's how we do it, and it's fairly effective. I think it's probably some that you were considering asked by the council.
Definitely, possibly. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes,
Can I go out of order and ask a quick clarifying question? Or
I will allow it, yes.
just on that, do we have any idea yet? A densely populated area, what the cost is to send to that 500 foot? I mean, again, just recent examples versus if it's truly the Clipper, $30. What does it cost to do the 500?
It's typically more expensive. We expect that we'll come back at the budget process and increase the application fee to cover that cost.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Okay. All right. Second comments. I think it's time to vote. And where are we at? Are we with you,
Just to repeat, we're voting to move this to an action item next week.
Correct. So, Councilmember Garn.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes 5-0. All right. We did not have anybody sign up to speak, call to the public, so we will.
Excuse me. May I make a comment anyway? I did not know that there was a sign up.
All right. Yep.
Okay.
Come on up.
All right. My name's Dave Saunders. For that last item, may I recommend putting it on the power bill, which goes out to every copy of that. And you could also put it on the Kaysville City website. Just have a list of everything, so that way, even if you're not close, you can still get that information. On the impact fee, it makes a lot of sense to have somebody verify that your studies are done well. As an engineer, I volunteer my services to take a look at it. Larry Page knows how to get a hold of me. Just have him contact me, and I'd be happy to look at it, as I did for the LTAP report. On the item that you had listed about the automatic meter infrastructure, my concern on that is not whether or not you're going to make money off of having them in there. It's that we don't know what it's going to, what the benefit is for the money that we're paying $2 million, and from what I heard from the comments tonight, nobody knows what the actual benefit to the city and to the power company is. I see that as a problem, not the cost, not the return, but that we don't know, and we're deciding whether or not it is. I think it should have been tabled tonight until you got that answer and then made a decision. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Council member reports. Let's just go around court.
Just on the power, I think everyone's seen got the email invitation. The Power Commission's meeting next week. Some interesting things are coming on there. They're just talking about alternative energy uses, I guess. And I'm not saying it the way that they're saying it, but because fossil fuels are becoming frowned upon, they're talking about, again, as I look through it, and again, I'm not the spokesman, but you're interested, they might be looking at a nuclear reactor up in Idaho and some interesting technologies, but that's what they'll be discussing and how to meet the future needs. So just, if that's of interest to you, UAMP will be presenting to Power Commission. So I just want to let you know that's kind of what they're going to be visiting about, talking about our future needs and how they're going to be meeting those needs with, and this is, I think, a focus on, I just call it alternative energy sources or zero carbon emission sources. That's really probably the best way not to say it. So there you go. That's my report.
How about, let's do community development.
Nothing to report this week.
Okay, thank you. How about Public Works?
Thank you, Mayor. I just will say briefly, first of all, I'm still in transition, so I enjoyed going to Local Officials Day with our Youth City Council. I couldn't be there. Point out that Anna Thompson is here almost every council meeting from the Youth City Council. We appreciate her being here, and I will miss serving both on the Youth Court and Youth City Council. But I've been going to now development meeting on Monday morning, and I have to say I'm just very impressed. This involves all areas of the city, but how well each different area of the city interact and coordinate in that development meeting, and how well they know every part of the city, how concerned they are to get it right and coordinate and be efficient. And I'm just humbled and amazed by what a great job.
And Parks and Rec, anything? Or, and Youth City Councils, or Youth,
City Council, yeah. So Youth City Council, it was great. Attended the local officials' day at the Capitol this past week. It was a fantastic experience, especially because we got to meet with some of our local legislators and see the process there. You'll see the letter that we put in our consent sent to them for some of the UDOT proposals is a good example, and we're trying to get more involvement. So it was great for me. Parks and Rec are a good example of this city trying to be more efficient and use what money we do have more efficiently. So I've been impressed by the support, our community events.
Great.
Thank you.
And I'll just make mention, if you haven't heard, it's our sesquicentennial on March 15th. So it is a pretty big deal. We're going to be having an event at 5 p.m. here in our parking area. It's going to be pretty amazing. So I think you should be there. Yes. And there's been, I don't want to give it away. There's a lot going to be happening. It is March. It is early evening, so it'll be short. But we hope that you will mark that down on your calendars to attend that. I also attended Local Officials Day and really we have great legislators who are very busy and very well placed and took time out of their day, very busy day, to speak to our kids. And that was just really impactful to me. So we're grateful for them for doing that. All right. Okay. And at this time, I think we need to, I'll entertain a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
Let's vote. Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes 5-0. And all right. And we will excuse the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a 20-second break.
Yes, please.